forgot my glasses and I got locked out of the building.
What's the problem?
I want the power. Hey,
You what?
I want more power.
More power.
I want all the
Don't you
power. No.
Welcome to a City Council meeting tonight, everybody. I think we'll get started. We're a few minutes late. A couple of us are waiting for our website to come up, but we'll get started anyway with a few things. We have a full council here today, and our city manager is here, and I believe our city attorney is going to be joining us a little later. So let's start with an invocation. We have Carmela Fitzpatrick with the Unity Church of Positive Living and representing the St. George Area Interfaith Council. Thank you, Carmela, for being here today. We'll turn the time to you for a thought or an invocation.
Thank you. I just want to go into prayer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father, for this beautiful day. And thank you for the mayor and the city council and continuing to give them wisdom in all the decisions they make. We thank you for their dedication to St. George, Utah. And thank you for anyone bringing business, being precise to the point. We thank you for being able to gather again. And we thank you that the agenda goes quickly so everyone can happily go home. And thank you, Father, for everyone here and keeping them healthy. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Carmela. And I think we all noticed that you prayed that things would be expeditious, or you used different words. Thank you. That's really good, too. We'll try to do our part in that. Let's all rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. Jimmy, will you lead us in that? Thanks, Jimmy. Thank you, everybody. Just want to recognize as we get started, we have members of our Youth City Council and Mayor here. Would you all raise your hands? We can kind of tell who you are, most of you, in your Youth City Council shirts. And it's really nice of you to be here. They're here observing today. And, at some point, I'm sure you might have some good words of wisdom to impart to us, and we should do that too sometime. But today, they're just here to shadow, I guess I should say. And typically, we would love to have them up here with us, kind of alternating. Can't do that right now due to COVID, but we're grateful to have you here. Appreciate you doing the things you're doing, and we hope you have a good year of service and leadership and education. So thank you very much for being here, each of you. Adam, any adjustments to our agenda? I wasn't aware of anything, but anything since I last talked to you this morning?
Yeah, just one. Item number 3 actually comes off the agenda. We believe that item's already been successfully resolved, and so there's no need to revisit that tonight. And we've cleared that with the applicant. So item number 3 comes off, but otherwise, everything's good to go.
Excellent. Council, any questions about the agenda before we embark? Okay, I'll mention one thing as we get started. I guess 2 things. Appreciate, I think we need to give appreciation where it's due to Washington County for holding a very effective election on Tuesday. And all those involved. And I know, Christina may not have been involved in this year's election, but she's always involved with our municipal ones, and she still has a role even in these, just a little bit more removed. But we really do appreciate the county in providing a place. I believe the only place was at the Dixie Center where you could vote on site, and I heard it went very well. Christina, I don't know what you heard, but yeah, and I know a lot of people voted that day. I can't remember how many thousand, but I heard there were thousands there that day. So wonderful. And from what I could tell, I'm not aware of any significant problems anyway. I'm sure there were a few wrinkles, but didn't hear any significant ones. And I just again hope that we would all across the country, and I hope we could just piggyback on Carmela's prayer, that we could pray for peace and acceptance in all races across the country, no matter what may happen. We can be united, and I hope everything is fair and honest across the country as well. But anyway, appreciate all involved and so many people for voting. As I understand it, it sounded like a record turnout for many places across the country. So that's wonderful. All right. So that said, we've made some changes, as some people know, with some events, canceled some. Just want to make some remarks there that we will be looking at that on a weekly basis with our Parks and Recreation Department and City Manager, and at least one, if not a couple, members of the council. We'll be looking at that on a weekly basis to kind of see a month out how we're looking based on the census at the hospital and the situation that we find ourselves in, kind of 1 week at a time over the next maybe couple months. We'll just see how it goes. I appreciate that the City Council has had to consider some difficult things as it relates to these events. Some of them super big events, some of them with a lot of people from out of state or out of the area, and appreciate some tough calls that have been made there, and we'll continue to try to be very thoughtful about this and following the science and following also our what we believe are the best interests of all of our people in our community. Also appreciate the City Council. Most of us were able to go today on a quick private tour of a couple places at the hospital and listen to a couple of physicians and caregivers firsthand. I thought that was helpful. Michelle, thank you for arranging that. Actually, Michelle did that with the hospital and a couple of physicians. Any comments you would make, Michelle, since you kind of arranged that?
No, I just think that the hospital is a partner in our community, and when doctors reach out to you personally and say, we really need your help on certain things, then it's our obligation to look strongly at events that we have planned that are bringing in a lot of people, and it was helpful to see all that they have set up. They get a lot of criticism, people saying the hospital's not full. Well, it's very full. We were in the ICU, we were on the COVID floor, and some of these doctors and nurses are exhausted. They're really exhausted. And I just thought it was good. It was good to go see firsthand, and some people get COVID and don't even know they have it. Others are getting it and in the ICU for a very long time, taking up a bed, and they're having to fly other people out because there is no more beds in the ICU. So you hear a lot of different things, and I think it was good to ask questions. We all asked questions and got answers, and I thought it was very helpful. So
thank you.
informative.
And again, I think it's fair to say we all know that all the patients in the hospital aren't COVID patients.
Right.
But it is a very full place right now. So I would appreciate that we all continue to do the very best we can individually. We've got to keep living life, but if we can just redouble our efforts, especially in our gatherings that aren't as structured, we can't let our guards down. And so anyway, let's do the best we can.
One more thing
yeah.
I want to say is I saw kind of an ugly attack on you personally as the mayor, and if anybody wants to attack anybody, then it should be me, because I had a couple of ER doctors reach out to me personally that I've known for a very long time and saying, please, 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 can you help? And I'm the one that reached out to the council and to Adam and to the mayor saying, we need to listen to them and do something. So it wasn't just because John's an employee with Select Health that we made these decisions. It was me. And so if anybody wants to attack, then shoot the arrows this way.
Well, I think there should be.
You heard it here
group of us,
first.
because I think we're all we're all in on this, and I think we all agree that this needs to be addressed.
I appreciate that, Brian and Michelle. And I don't usually respond to attacks like that because I don't think it does any good. But we really do try to be a team of 6 elected officials, plus our city manager and our city senior staff and all of our city employees. We're a team, and we're really trying. It doesn't mean we're rubber stamps and that we all think the same things, because we don't. And you'll see that tonight, I'm confident, as we do most of our meetings. But we're a team, and we're trying. I know this, that every person on this team is trying to do the very best they can for the people of St. George.
And we asked the doctors, what can we do? How can we make these events happen and be safe? And they had some good suggestions for us that we'll take into consideration as we go forward, because they don't want us shut down either, but they're just very overwhelmed at the moment. Yesterday we set a COVID record here, and so we just have to everybody do their part.
Thank you, appreciate it. Well, maybe we can begin with our written agenda, and unless there are any other comments, council. All right.
I will say one thing. I did find it enlightening to have a good conversation with the doctors over there. And quite frankly, I think they kind of saw some things from our perspective. I had a good conversation even yesterday with Dr. Foster. And today he actually responded to some of those comments that I made about the fact that we also have a whole other part of the population that's not in the hospital that is trying to live life, and so there's this balance that we're trying to achieve of not stifling so many people that we have other problems economically, mental health wise. He recognized all that. They all did. They recognized that, and it was kind of one of those things where I felt like we were kind of coming together to find a middle ground to where they were obviously feeling overwhelmed and that there's an issue, but they also understand the other side of it, which there are people that are trying to run businesses, feed their families, and provide jobs, that they have to look at that, because there's some long-term ramifications there, health-wise and mental health-wise. So I thought it was great. So.
Thanks, Jimmy. I think that was an excellent observation. And we do. I made that almost that same comment on the radio this morning, because there are people, and I don't want this to be a polarizing issue. Sorry, it is, but I wish it weren't. I certainly really would like to see it no longer be a political issue. It's a community issue in our case. It's a St. George issue for us, right? And so let's do the best we can. But I did take some comments on both sides of this coin on the radio today, and we're not doing enough and we're doing too much. And Jimmy mentioned this on our tour today, but I've heard already from a few hoteliers, and in fact several have said on the one hand, okay, we just want to understand what are you up to, and so I tried to explain that to one of them, key hotelier, and there's another one that said, should we be canceling some of our conferences in our hotels? Not necessarily, and that's what we're going to really look at, try to make good recommendations to the council, and the council will be part of those recommendations for ongoing, looking a month ahead, and making those decisions as we have new data. But you're right, Jimmy. I think there's also, it's healthy, and we've learned some things in the last 7 months. We've learned some things that are most important and some things that are maybe a little less important. And one of the things is, we still are social creatures, and we're better when we're meeting together as best we can. And we can do some Zoom and WebEx and all the other things, Google Hangouts, but we still need each other. And so let's find ways to do that and be as safe as we can, and still even celebrate the seasons that are coming up. Brian?
Patrick said something really interesting today too that kind of got us, that we're kind of looking at it as we're going to shut down like we did before, and they have learned what they can do now, because before they had no idea what they were dealing with, so they went way above and beyond, and now we're learning to do things better.
That's
and
right.
Try to make things better for everybody, and I think that's something we need to look at and help them to figure out what this unknown is for them, and by still going on with our daily lives and making us mentally okay.
Yeah. Well said. Well, let's move forward. I don't have any comments, any forms for comments from the public that have been turned in, and so that is just for things of a general nature that are not on our, or not likely to be on our current or upcoming meeting. So we will go to our next item, which is our consent calendar. Adam, nothing's been added to that, right? So any council, any items that you have concerns or questions about, or that you'd like to talk more about? Otherwise, I'd accept a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I got one on item H.
Okay.
I think that's a very interesting one. Now, we saw the full report in our packet. I was wondering if someone could comment on what made us choose this company over the others, and also kind of some of the things we're having them do. I think it's very interesting, so I think it's very worth our time to talk about a little bit.
John's going to tell us. Thank you, John.
So there's two components of the first is the general plan, and that general plan will actually look at all of the land use policies for the entire city. And so we'll look at where, what makes sense for residential, commercial, all of those things, and kind of those guiding policies. And obviously that's a very important part of everything that we do. And so that's kind of the first portion of it. The second part is looking at the downtown area. What do we want our downtown to be in the next 20 years? We're kind of at a point where we're seeing a lot of growth, and we want to make sure that whatever vision is created is going in the direction that the city wants it to go. And so that portion of it is very important. We're going to be looking at the residential also, along with all the commercial. We'll be looking at the parking in the downtown area, looking at different densities in the downtown area. So that's going to encompass that entire area. And so it's a very big part of this project is the downtown area. If you look at it, it's actually a bigger portion of that of the project is that downtown area, because it's an important one, and at the end it'll actually result in an ordinance that's something we can actually administer and enforce in that area. So it's a big deal. We looked at several different national firms that had a lot of experience. VCBO, based on the presentation and all the questions that we answered, really had a good handle on the items that we felt were important, making sure that they give us the best product that we need for our community.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Thanks for bringing that up, Greg. It is significant. We had hoped to be doing this a lot sooner, frankly, but COVID slowed us down. We do have, maybe about half the funds in the budget, so we will need to do a budget opening at some point for the rest of it. But we need to do this desperately, and so I think City Manager and Deanna, I think, have figured out we can probably afford it. Is that right? Okay. Great thing to bring up. We'll be involving a lot of people in this general process, the general plan process. Anything else, council? Okay.
I'll make a motion we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Motion by Greg, seconded by Danielle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, John, for your leadership in that, and Adam and others involved. There's been a lot of work done to select this firm. Okay, item 4. Wes, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me see if I can find this. Let me go back.
That's his other one. So everyone have this up on their devices now? Okay, good. Just so the public knows, we also can view what's being displayed on the walls on this monitor, but sometimes it's nice for us to be able to see it on our own devices. All right, Wes.
Okay, here we go. Item 4 is a request, is a request to amend the final subdivision plat for lot 68 of the Cliffs of Snow Canyon Plat I and lots 52 and 53 of the Cliffs of Snow Canyon Plat G by adding some of the common area, which is a public utility easement. So basically, here's lot 1. This was lot 68 here, 52 and 53 here. Property lines were basically like this, and this. So this was common area and property owned by HOA. They've worked out a deal where the HOA is okay with selling them that property, so it vacates the public utility easements that were along those rear property lines and creating new ones here, and then these become their new lot lines. This is lot 1, lot 2, and lot 3.
Questions for Wes on this, council?
So everyone approved. There was no one opposed to anything associated with this.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. We do need a public hearing on this item. And so I will, unless there are questions for Wes, okay, I'll open the public hearing at this time for anyone that may have come to offer comments or ask questions on this item number 4 on our agenda. Any online? Then I will close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for any further discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion we approve the subdivision amendment for Eastview Cliff subdivision by increasing the size of lot 68, the Cliffs of Snow Canyon Plat 1, and lots 52 and 53, the Cliffs of Snow Canyon Plat G, lots 2 and 3, by adding some of the common area to each lot, which is a public utility easement at the rear of each lot into the adjacent lot.
Second.
Motion was made by Greg, seconded by Michelle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Danielle, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Number 5, Wes.
Okay. Let me just find. Okay, item 5 is a public hearing and request, a public hearing consideration of a petition for a subdivision amendment for Meadow Valley Farms, Phase 11, lots 132 and 133, is amended by adjusting the common lot line and its associated public utility easements to the west. So here's the two lots. The property line actually was over here. They worked out a deal where they're going to move the property line there with their associated easements that go along with it. They'll also, the fire hydrant actually was right here on the property line with their water meters on either side. So as part of this, it'll be conditioned on them relocating that fire hydrant to that point there and locating the water meters in their appropriate location on each lot.
Any concerns on this, council, or questions? Okay, then I will open the public hearing on this item, number 5, for anyone who may have come to offer input or questions on this item. Again, none online. Thank you, Christina. Then I'll close the public hearing, come back to you, council, for any discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the subdivision amendment for Meadow Valley Farms Phase 11, lots 132 and 133, amended by adjusting the common lot line and its associated public utility easement to the west.
Second.
Very good. Michelle makes the motion and Brian seconds it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, this time starting on the other end with Greg, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. I feel like those might have been the easiest ones of the night. Thanks, Wes. I'm going to talk floodplain for a minute, huh?
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
we're
It's
trying-
kind of nice to be quiet for a minute.
We're trying something a little new. We actually just made one PowerPoint for all these projects, so we'll see how this goes. Hopefully it'll go okay, so we don't have to hunt every time. Okay, so this application is for a general plan amendment. It's about that time of year, and so we're looking at the general plan in a couple of cases tonight. This one specifically is property located on 1450 South. It's about 12 acres, and you can see it outlined in red on the north side of the road in between 1450 South and the river. Currently, on the left side, you see that it's in the floodplain area, the land use designation area in the general plan. The zoning, what you see on the right side, is actually R110. So that's a residential single-family zoning category. The applicant is proposing to change this and take it out of that floodplain category and change the general plan category to commercial so that they can do some commercial. I don't think that they have a real firm idea of what they want to do specifically, but they do want to take that high-level look at it and change that into a commercial land use designation. And then if that's approved, then it would open the door for a zone change sometime in the future. This is a look at the property. Just a couple of shots from Google. You can see it's undeveloped. And that is the request. The Planning Commission recommended approval. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Can you discuss what this means? Because is all of this or most of this in floodplain?
Yeah, they actually removed it from the floodway. It's been removed by FEMA out of the floodway, but it's still in the, I believe, in the 100-year, is it 100 or 500? What's that? In the 100-year floodplain.
So it remains in the plain, but it's out of the floodway.
It's out of the floodway, correct.
That's how I understood it.
Yeah. So if they desire to build something in the future, they need to build it to the standards. You know, usually it's elevated so that it's up out of that floodplain area. But they'd have to follow those standards that FEMA sets forth.
Dan, what questions did the Planning Commission ask? What were their concerns?
Mostly about the floodplain, as I recall. It's been a little while, but my recollection is that that was their main concern, is understanding the difference between the floodway and the floodplain and what that would mean for them. So kind of the same things that you're asking.
I would much rather see this commercial than obviously residential, because if you've been here long enough, you've seen all that underwater.
Homes flood, falling
Yeah,
down the river.
I've seen all of this underwater.
Yes.
And actually, we worked on the Summit Athletic Club, and even when we were building it, there was literally water up to the doorway as we were building that building. So,
I would also say there was one member of the public that came in that was concerned about the change, specifically somebody building in that floodplain. So just want to make
Okay.
sure that was on the record as well.
Mayor, I have some discussion items when you look for discussion.
Well, I don't know why there's any time like the present, other than that we could hear from the applicant maybe first, unless there's anything else you have, Dan. I didn't think there was. So would the applicant like to come and express anything, and then maybe we can have some discussion or questions for the applicant?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Nick McKinley. I'm one of the owners, also the applicant. This property has a little bit of a history, obviously, in working with the city. We have spent a lot of time in discussions with the city. As mentioned, we did work with Rosenberg Engineering and the city. The map was moved, and please correct me on anything that I say, Jared. So we did go through that process, and it was shown that it really shouldn't have been where it was at, and so FEMA did move the line. As mentioned, it is R110. We have had several discussions with the city staff about people that were interested in doing something on the property, and the city staff has felt like, hey, we really don't want to see houses or multifamily there, and has kind of been recommended in our meetings that we'd much rather see commercial on this property. So per kind of meeting with the city for a while and having those meetings and discussions, that's what we've decided to do, is move forward. Kind of the Maverick and the Jiffy Lube, there's several things that we understand need to be done with erosion control, different things like that to mitigate the risk, just as Maverick and Jiffy Lube have done. We understand that we have to address those things, and we'll be working with Rosenberg Engineering on addressing those, as they're the experts in the river management. And so, yeah, I mean, just we understand there are some concerns, but this has been done a lot of places throughout the city, and there are things that can be done to mitigate the risk, and we do understand that this is only part of the process, but as we continue to work with the city on whatever we do there, we do understand we're going to have to continue to do things and show that we are going to mitigate the risk through erosion control and different things like that. So,
Questions for Nick? Okay. Thank you. Discussion, and if there are any questions for staff as well still, I think that's appropriate too. Danielle?
Yeah, Mayor, my main concern is that I feel like we need to have further discussion about what we're going to do in these floodways and floodplains. Floodplains are vital. They're floodplains for a reason. They actually help to replenish our aquifers. They're super important for the natural habitat around them, for the animals, and just for our whole ecosystem, it's really important for us to maintain, our floodplains as best as we can. And I guess my biggest concern is the more we build in our floodplains, like Mr. McKinley says, he can mitigate risk for his particular property, but the problem is it pushes it, it's math, I mean, the water has to have a certain amount of area when it comes. And so if it doesn't go to his area, it goes somewhere else. And that's my concern with us as we keep changing these natural floodplains. If we let people build in natural floodplains, the water goes somewhere else. So, how do we know for sure that him building here isn't, and basically mitigating, basically raising the floodplain up, which is what he'll have to do. The water, might push in further along the floodplain, further downstream, and then we end up with other issues. So I just personally would like to have a discussion and possibly maybe, professional consultation for us citywide and streamwide, that we talk more about this before we let anyone else build anything, commercial. Or I agree with Michelle. I mean, obviously, if we're going to let somebody build, it's better for it to be commercial. But should it be built on at all, I guess is my question.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll jump in.
Go ahead, Greg.
So we had a discussion come up, I don't know, it was months ago, talking about the same type of issue in a different location of building in a floodplain. Now that hasn't come back. That got tabled. We didn't have to make a decision on it. However, at that time and this time, I've studied hours and hours and hours on, just to make sure that I'm educated as much as I can on this as we make decisions on it. And I would have to echo and say I can't agree more with what Danielle says. I think we need a bigger conversation on this. I think the easy places developed in St. George are done. So now we need to start looking at the things that are a little bit more technical to do. As we look at floodplains, I think we need to make sure that we're very educated, because the one thing that keeps coming up over and over is when you, just like Danielle said, when you correct one area to make it so it works, water needs to go somewhere so it can affect other places. So I'd personally like to have us have more discussion on this topic and better education before we make a decision.
Thank you, Greg. One of the things I'm wondering about is a legal perspective, Sean. Obviously, we have before us something that's here as a zone change, right? Are we talking? Yeah. General plan change before the zone change. But what is it saying? What is it obligating? What is, and if we approve something tonight, or if we deny something tonight based on the concerns that have been raised, and frankly they have been raised before, and I do think it's of concern. And I agree with comments that have been raised that we ought to be looking. I keep thinking, I've said this to several of you, that we're done with all these areas along the river, but we're not. As you just said, Greg, they keep popping up, and you don't even realize that it might be developable. But there is an effect, and we've had people tell us this before. If you push out on one side of the river, where does it go? To the other side, downstream, where does it go? Anyway, Jimmy, you've probably been around long enough to know that you probably would be surprised some of the places that we've built since you were hunting pheasants or whatever along the river. So I don't know, Sean, would you give us any guidance before we step into this in terms of some kind of a motion? Just in terms of what's...
Mayor, this is just to remind those that may not have been here for when this first came up with the driving range. This has been the subject of a lot of discussion between the city and with the property owners and with the engineers. And I think before I say anything on the legal side, it might be helpful to have Jared come forward and talk a little bit about what measures would have to take place in order to build anything on this property. As you know, on the general plan, it shows it as, or on the ground zoning, I believe, is R110. Is that right, John? So So there is that right to build there right now, so to speak, for an R110. When I say right, I mean it's zoned that way, but they'd still have to meet all of the safety requirements. And so some changes were made since this initially came to us. And I wonder if you could just walk us through that a little bit of how you had FEMA change it from the floodway to the floodplain. And then also remind you that we did go through this with the Jiffy Lube and the Maverick as well, those parcels there. And the city participated in some of the shoring that occurred there that actually helped protect our bridge. But we were very mindful on this property to remind the property owner and the engineers that we own the property across the river, some of it. And we certainly don't want it deflected onto our property as well. So they've looked at this over a number of years.
And I might just state that I know at least one person on this council voted against the Jiffy Lube because we had concerns then.
No.
Yeah.
More arrows. At Michelle. And you know, before I forget, because I'm getting old, I think when we talked about the Jiffy Lube and stuff too, we did go kind of up and down the river and looked at all the parcels that maybe still are available. Now, while they keep popping up, like this one, we've known about it, and so yeah, it might be good to go back and take an inventory. But I don't think if you go up and down the river, there are a whole lot of them that, like some of them we own. We've been trying to preserve the corridor. A lot of the trails, the property's been purchased, so we ought to look at that and see where there are still some developed. But I don't think they're in our city boundary, coming from Washington, that there are a whole lot, and that might be an easy task once we identify those, of saying, hey, what's the future of those parcels?
I think it would be good to do, and I hope there aren't too many either, but I keep getting surprised.
Yeah, we had this same discussion then, if I remember right.
We did.
In fact, it came up too when they were putting in where the Smiths is, Dinosaur Crossing.
Yeah.
It came up there, and we kind of had made that road that goes along there. That's the boundary.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If I remember right. Anyways,
Yep.
Sorry, Jared.
Yeah, please.
Sure. So just maybe just to kind of go through a couple of things here.
Just for the record, would you state your name?
Sure. This is Jared Bates with Rosenberg Associates. Hey, so I think to address Danielle's question, which is a valid question, there's two lines that are out there in the river. There's the floodplain and the floodway. So what the floodplain line is, what that means is it's during a 100-year storm event, the water at any depth will reach that location. So do we have those lines by chance? I mean, so basically that outer line, where it's at, it's close to where the summit's at, all that area east of the summit. So what's the name of that development? Do you guys know? Where Boulder Crossing?
Boulder Springs? Yeah.
I got the mouse here. Okay.
Well, I think it's out here a little bit, but then the top ones.
Yeah. So the floodplain line is through here, and in the past it's actually been way back here. So this whole area, the Popeyes, the Jiffy Lube, all this area is in the 100-year floodplain, or it has been at a certain point. And in the past, to develop that, you just need to raise the ground up above the 100-year flood elevation. Now, the concern that Danielle has, which is the valid one, is the floodway line. What that line is, that line establishes the area that can be encroached or filled up to an infinite height without raising the water in the river up to 1 foot. So, and that's how the city administers development in the floodplain. Is anything that's beyond that floodway line, it can't be. There's no buildings there. There can't be any fill there, and so that line is. It's fairly complicated, the process to determine where that line is at. And that line, it accounts for flow upstream and downstream. And for example, if we squeeze that floodway too much in one spot, it messes it up upstream or downstream. So when we did this analysis, I did this analysis, it's been a couple of years ago. This area here that the developer wants to develop was easily taken out of that floodway line, meaning that the floodway line, as it was originally drawn in, was much wider than it was necessarily needed to be, or much wider than what was probably could be calculated. Because if you look down there by where the bridge is at, the floodway line is much narrower. So in the past it was probably very conservatively mapped, and so we did the calculations it moved up quite a bit. I mean, it could have been moved further towards the river, but we didn't want to push any further than was necessary. So that's what that line represents. And as far as development goes, I mean, there is a floodplain ordinance, there's a floodplain development permit process to do anything out there in the river. So with the general plan change, it doesn't really give any sort of vested right to build anything without either doing an erosion hazard study, meaning these guys would need to put in some erosion protection, and that analysis would determine if what improvements these guys would make, how it impacts adjacent property owners. So if you guys have the park across the way there, or something that's going to happen across the way in the future, we have to take that into consideration. So those are all things that are carefully studied. And then as far as the same thing with placing fill in the river, we'll have to determine how that impacts other properties. So it's a very complicated process. And if you like, you guys mentioned the idea of what property is developable along the river there. There's a lot of property that's still developable out there. Like if you look just east of the bridge there, Don Taylor's piece there, that floodplain line could be moved similarly, and that whole thing could be developed someday. I'm not saying it should happen, but the same sort of process that was done here on this piece could happen over there. So. Any specific questions?
Any questions for Jared? Okay, Jamie?
So two-part, maybe not just for Jared, but back to Sean. So if those mitigating factors that he's talking about were done right now, then they could build single-family homes there. They have that right now.
If they could show that to us to our satisfaction, then yes.
Is it zoned residential?
It's zoned R110 right now.
I couldn't remember. I thought it was only a part of it was zoned, but okay, the whole thing's zoned. It was our holding zone.
It was the holding zone, yes. It wasn't a conscious line that was made. A lot of you will remember that's what we used to do with hillsides. Everything, we would just bring it in as a R110.
Okay.
Point out, we've had numerous meetings with the city, and the people that we have met with, I think I'm safe to say that everyone has said, we don't want to see houses there. We'd much rather see something commercial. And so, again, we are moving forward based upon the recommendations of the planning committee and the meetings that we've had with city officials and things like that. We still, again, to address your concern, there's still things that we have to do. This doesn't just give us a free pass to go do whatever we want. But we understand, like Jared said, we still have to look at erosion control, just like the Maverick and Jiffy Lube did, to make sure that, if the river starts changing, that is addressed. And just, again, like was mentioned, there's still things that we have to do per the floodplain requirements per the city. So just to be clear, this just doesn't give us a free pass to go do whatever we want to do. There's still things that we have to address. So.
Right. There have always been concerns, though, you'll remember, Nick, about building anything very significant along that area. There have always been concerns about that. We were talking one time about how big is that building and how close is it to the road, back when we were looking at it being
Sure.
big shots,
Yeah, sure, and I totally agree with that, but I also, if you look at what has been developed along the river and what the city has approved, I don't feel like we're doing anything that's out of the ordinary that hasn't already been done throughout the city on numerous locations.
I think what you might be sensing, though, is one of those pesky facts, which is councils can't bind the hands of future councils. And so we've got council members here that might have a different take. And so that's why I'm asking some of these questions. Just want to make sure we're upfront, we're transparent, but also that we're fair and legal as well.
Well, and Mayor, I would like to add that just because we've done something in the past doesn't mean that we wouldn't reevaluate that and make sure it was the right thing. Sometimes we make decisions that we say, well, maybe that didn't work out as well as we'd hoped. And I feel like it's our job to look at the things we've done in the past and say, are we on the right track, or do we need to change direction a little bit? So I think, making the argument that, well, this is what the council's done in the past, and so you just have to stay the same. That would be unintelligent of us to just always do things exactly the same, especially when we know that there's, items that are issues with something that's problematic. So I'm not sure. For me, if they already have the right to develop in that space, of course, I would rather see a commercial space there than a residential space. So as far as changing general plan, I don't have a problem with changing the general plan, but I do think that we need to evaluate, you know, are the things that we're requiring of people in the floodplain, is it stringent enough?
Is it
Are we doing
sufficient?
enough? Is it sufficient?
Okay. Any further discussion? Otherwise, you know, I think you know the motions that are available to you, council. But I think some good points have been made.
Well, I'm going to make a motion because right now, if they were to do everything they need to do, they could build homes there.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance changing a portion of the floodplain land use designations to commercial on property generally located on the north side of 1450 South and approximately 1600 East.
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Michelle and seconded by Danielle. Any discussion on the motion?
I have a discussion topic on it. I'd like to see us talk about, and not just say, well, I'd like to see us as a council have a discussion on this, on what we're going to do for properties in the floodplain in the near future, just so we can be more defined as we make decisions as these come forward. That's just a discussion topic that I'd like to see it happen with us.
Thank you.
Mr. City Manager.
Any other?
Put that on your calendar.
I was just going to comment that that is going to make for a great discussion when we're updating our general plan.
Yeah, it will.
Perfect.
All this talk about flooding's got me excited.
I know.
I wish it would flood.
I know. I was talking to someone in Enterprise, the mayor, the other day, who said, frankly, we would take your August flood right now, Mayor. They really are dry. He said, drier than he's ever seen it. All in favor of the motion, starting with Michelle, say aye.
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 Nay.
Go ahead, Danielle.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries on a vote of 4-1. Thank you for the comments and the discussion, council. And the applicant, thank you.
This is a request to change the general plan from low-density residential to commercial on approximately 14.75 acres, generally located at 910 West, 4700 North. So the ledges is here to the north, and the trails is kind of down here to the south. This is a mined-out cinder cone, so that's the area that we're looking at. So this 14 acres here. This is the natural extension of Pocket Mesa Drive, to give reference of how to get out there. And that's it. The applicant is available here in the room or staff if you have questions.
Really quick.
I tried to drive up there today and see it, and I couldn't figure out where it was. Stacy, can you help me figure out where this is? I think is it near buildings that are already up there?
Sort of. Stacy Young representing the applicant. It's essentially the cinder pit. So the idea is to wind down gravel mining operations there. You may remember a couple of years ago when we came in asking to do some RV storage within the Ledges project, and you know, we had some folks that really want that, and we still get that request a lot, but people didn't like where we were asking to put it. So we went back to the drawing board, and this is the location we found that we thought made sense.
Okay.
So essentially this would be, we would finish, like I said, the gravel mining operation, graded out properly. We would leave, you've got essentially a natural visual barrier around three sides. The cinder cone is essentially our boundary around it.
Okay.
So it's just south of the equestrian center. So if you went all the way out on the dirt road, you get to a fork right at the end, and the left hand goes down to the equestrian center. If you stay straight, you go into the cinder pit.
Okay. So it's not very easily seen from SR 18.
Could we not visible at all?
And that's really great because, I mean, that was the complaint of the neighbors then. And so, I mean, I can see how that makes sense.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Stacy?
Well, I guess not for Stacy, so.
Okay.
Thanks, Stacy.
Thank you.
Greg? I'd love to see if we could. Could we pull up a Google map? Is that a possibility, just to get a better idea of, this doesn't show it exactly
topography and
topography,
stuff.
just to kind of get a better idea of where it sits, where current development's at and things, just to.
I think we've all been past it a million times, but you don't see it. But Greg, I know went up there.
Yeah.
Oh, that doesn't look like it at all.
RV storage does not work
I'll
for
go
that
over big.
location, no.
I saw a photo the other day that had that arch, that was Delicate Arch, wasn't it? With the moon, a full moon in the middle of it. Did you see that? I don't know if it was real, but it was sure awesome.
Okay, does that help? It's this area right there.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you get down to...
Access is currently on that dirt road that goes out to it.
Right.
So is there planned development that comes up to it, or will it always be just you drive out that road to get to it? I mean, what's the future development plan, if any, that gets around that?
It's currently surrounded by LDR.
Okay.
But there aren't plans down here yet.
Yeah, right now, there's development that you would have to go through. There's more development than what's shown on that aerial. If you have access on your devices to the internal map, you'll see where additional homes have been built. So that dirt road that looks like it comes all the way to the highway, that access, as I understand it, is no longer there. You would have to come down through a portion of the ledges, and then that turns into the dirt road.
Yeah, we're still waiting for updated maps, aren't we, Adam, on Google?
Yeah, Google's a little bit behind.
Mm-hmm. Other thoughts or comments?
So it appears to me you have to actually travel on Ledges Parkway to get there. Is that correct?
Yes? Did someone say? Stacy? Yeah.
Yeah, I can shed some light on that. So Ledges Parkway would be extended. You can kind of see the outline of where it will be.
Can you use the mouse there?
Yeah, so you can kind of see the faint outline of where there is now a roundabout. And so the streets you see here is the neighborhood where Ents Homes is developing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually working on additional phases of lots right now. We're also extending water and power line trunk lines so that they loop around the golf course and tie in, so there's redundancy up there. And so essentially it'll be an extension of that road, extension of the development, and obviously then the project itself and the roadways would have to be extended to it. So you wouldn't be able to, our future application wouldn't be based on dirt road access. It would be, you'd have paved access to it. It'd be a normal facility and all that. So yeah, it's essentially on the east side of the ledges.
So I think I know where you're talking, but I mean, I've got it in my head. But the people from the ledges cannot see down to where you're going to put that.
There's a few, there are some folks that could see sort of this side of it from over here. If they look, if they really, there's kind of one side of it that Cinder Cone is open to the north. The other three sides are surrounded. So
no huge eyesore.
Yeah. So yeah, it's you wouldn't be able to tell it was there until you drove up to it.
Again, we're talking about. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we were kind of pleased with ourselves for even finding this. We were turning over every rock trying to find out where we were going to put all the toys that folks up there have. So
yeah. Again, we're talking about general plan at this point, but that is, you just mentioned one of the thoughts, right? Storage. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Should I clarify, is this facility intended to be open to the general public or just for residents of the ledges?
Well, a comment was when I first saw this, I was, for 14 acres, or how many acres is it? 14.75 acres of commercial on that location. I was just, what is this? It seemed very regular, but with the explanation given, could be something.
I agree, Greg. That's why I drove up there, because I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me, but this makes sense to me.
Okay.
Ready for a motion?
Ready for motion if you're so inclined.
Motion to approve the ordinance changing the general plan from low-density residential to commercial.
I'll second.
Motion made by Michelle, seconded by Danielle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Jimmy, say aye.
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 Just have to mix
That's
it
so
up.
confusing.
I know, isn't that great? Got to keep us on our toes tonight. Number 8, right? Am I keeping track correctly? Yeah. Welcome back,
Thank you.
Dan.
Thank you. Okay. It's this one. All right. Number 8 is to consider approval of an ordinance changing a portion of property from commercial land use designation to HDR, high-density residential, on property generally located west of Bluff Street at approximately 300 west and 900 south. And if this looks familiar, it's because you looked at it earlier this year, or at least a portion of it. Those two that are circled there, and you can see here on your screen, 900 south, right here, Bluff Street here. This was changed from commercial to high density residential, and these two pieces were left commercial. As the applicant has looked at it and has tried to design around that, their project that they're going to be working on here, the high density, they have come to the conclusion that those properties, those two small commercial properties, really are better suited as high density residential. So they're before you tonight to propose that that get changed from commercial to high density residential. They're two parcels. They are approximately 0.9 and 0.8 of an acre, so for a total of 1.7. So that's the request. The Planning Commission recommended approval. If you have any questions, I'll happy to answer those.
Council?
Is this in the blue clay area?
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, it's
It's a bobblehead over there.
Yeah. It's all an interesting soils area, and I assume they would have to.
It is definitely in the hillside area, which would have to be evaluated. So the hillside board will review that. And
We'll let an engineer.
And that will come before
Mr. Engineer, would
Yeah.
you like to address?
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us who you are.
Bob Hermanson with Bush and Gudgel, new face around here.
Yeah. Welcome, Bob.
Appreciate your time. Sorry, the question was regarding soils, was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've done quite a bit of geotech testing all the way through that whole, there's like a bowl back there where before the slopes like go really steep right back in the back. And so there's actually quite a bit of sandstone layers all the way through there. And so, there you go, that's perfect.
That's better.
Yep. So yeah, so everything that's been disturbed that's down below is what we're referring to. And then the general plan right now is this. The two changes are these flatter areas. One is this to the right here, down here on the bottom, and then further to the right is the second portion, the upper portion on that map. And so these are the flatter areas down below. The one a little bit to the north kind of goes up the hillside a little bit, but this is on the lower section. So there are, what I was referring to earlier, the sandstone layers are actually over here to the left, a little bit higher up. There is some clay material in here that will have to be mitigated with this whole site.
We just don't want anything like what's across the street.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, so we're well aware of that with the client as well, and we've been testing all the way through here. Was that the only question for now? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Other comments? Again, what they're doing here, right, we're changing a portion of it, adding a bit more, right? Do I understand it correctly? To the high-density residential?
Yes. Yeah, I would go from commercial to high density.
Yep. Which, I don't know your thoughts, council, but, I mean, it seems like we kind of already made this decision, at least for part of it, but seems like a reasonable location for some high-density residential.
Yeah, there is high-density residential there, there's commercial, there's everything kind of right around there, so.
It's a really good spot for it because it has access close to the freeway. And,
Transit.
Transit, so.
And commercial.
Commercial.
Right below if you needed.
Schools, pretty close.
One question is, was the commercial left in before because it was going to be part of the plan, and now it's just a question. I mean, why wasn't it adjusted before in the initial request?
We're hopeful that that could be incorporated into some commercial development, but again, as they've looked at it and started planning for the high density residential, it's become clear that with the topography and so forth, it really isn't viable for commercial.
If there are no questions, council, I'd be ready for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the ordinance changing the portion of commercial land use designations to high-density residential on property generally located west of Bluff Street at approximately 300 west and 900 south.
Second.
Motion was made by Brian, seconded by Michelle. Is that you, Michelle? Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Greg, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Dan. Number 9.
All right. This one is to consider approval of an ordinance changing the zone from R110 to, which is residential 10,000 square foot minimum lot size, to a PDAP, Planned Development Administrative Professional, along with approval of a use list. Property is generally located at 2046 North 2-Week Drive. You can see the property, this one on the upper left-hand corner is the general plan, and you can see that it has been master planned for professional office. This one came before you earlier, I would say it was earlier this year, for that general plan amendment, which was approved.
Seems so long ago.
It seems like a lifetime.
Was that this year? This has been 10 years, hasn't it?
I think it was February, if I recall right. Wow. And then the zoning,
BC.
the current zoning is down below on the lower right-hand corner, and that is currently R110. The Planning Commission looked at this, and well, first I should say there were some concerned neighbors. As you may recall, when the general plan was changed, there were quite a few neighbors, not quite as many with the zoning, but still some concerned neighbors. And I think you've actually received some notices and so forth, letters from the neighbors. So
quite a few, actually, I think. Yeah.
I think in general, and I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but I think in general they were just concerned with the use list and how much, paring some of that down. I think at least that's the feeling I got from reading those letters and talking to people. So this is the use list that the applicant proposed, and this is really just kind of out of the code, out of the AP section of the code, of the zoning code. The Planning Commission, after reviewing this and hearing the public and discussion, they made a recommendation to approve the zone change, but by paring down some of those uses. So all those that are outlined that are highlighted in red are the ones that they proposed be removed. So they're yes, removed. Yeah. So so you'd be left with the items in black. Now some of the letters that you've received actually recommended paring that down even more. So that's what's before you tonight is whether A, the zone change is appropriate, and B, if so, what uses are appropriate at this property. There are 2 parcels involved, and I think if there's anything else I wanted to mention. I think that pretty much covers it. So if you have any other questions for me, I'm happy to answer those.
Council, any questions for Dan on this?
Yeah, I'll ask the question because I remember this just to bring it up. question is this needed to happen for that assisted living facility that currently sits in that area? The zone change needs to happen so that can be reinstated as an assisted living facility.
That's
Is
right.
that correct?
There was a conditional use permit that expired, and so, yes, that was part of this application.
So,
One of the things that some of the neighbors were concerned about was their understanding was that it would be, it would remain in the hands of the current owner. The applicant has stated that they are proposing to potentially sell it, and that was a concern for some of the neighbors as well.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear him. Could I move up?
I'll try to speak later.
Yeah, why don't you repeat that?
Yeah, one of the concerns from some of the neighbors was that this property, that they understood that the property would remain in the ownership of the current property owner, but that the property owner at the last meeting stated that they were looking to potentially sell it.
Okay. Jimmy?
Dan, what was the concern about religious facility? Would that mean a church?
You know, they didn't go into specifics about that. Yeah, that would be a church. And in my mind, and maybe legal department might want to weigh in, but I'm not sure if that could be removed.
I didn't think you could.
And I thought school was the same. Can't you put
Right.
a school or a church anywhere?
Yeah,
they don't have to
I would
ask
be a little
us.
concerned about those, but
Or Sean.
Church might be, I have to ask us, but the school doesn't.
That's right. They never seem to.
I think you can put a church anywhere.
I think so too. Even in,
They're
Yeah.
allowed in residential.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the applicant here? And is there anything? And talking about the applicant?
The applicants?
Yeah, applicants. Anything you'd like to say? I need to know you from somewhere, Sandy. Yeah.
Yes, this is the Ted Worthen Center for the Terminally Ill, and we have changed our model, and it is no longer a facility that is administered by volunteers other than the board which we are on. We hope to be able to sell this property, and I don't understand that any other people should be able to decide whether we can or not, as long as it meets the necessary criteria for the use of it. We hope to be able to sell it and then use the monies that we receive, put into a trust, and then we would dispense them as we do now, and we've been using the money that we got from our lease to dispense to people in the community who are terminally ill but are financially unable to care for themselves, and we've been doing this for a number of years. And so that's why we hope to, and we understand that the people who are interested in buying the property are going to continue the same usage that we actually have been using it for, which was an assisted living facility.
Thank you. Sandia Hire for the record. Any questions for the applicant?
Well, I just wanted to thank these ladies for serving on that board. It's such a blessing for people.
Mhm.
And, what a labor of love by you. Thank you.
Sean, we had a question on the uses. The Planning Commission X'd out some uses. We can't deny
Church,
a church going there, can we?
school.
Yeah, I don't know how you would do that, and I'm wondering was there any background? I was in the conference room, so I heard some of the discussion. Was there any background from the Planning Commission as to why they chose those two? I would agree that may or though.
Okay.
I think the Planning Commission may have received some input from the neighbors, things that they did not want
In there, yeah, makes sense. Although those are pretty good neighbors usually. But anyway, I don't think we can restrict where they can locate, right, Sean? I mean, it's been our understanding.
If it's allowed in that zone, then you can't restrict that.
Well, but this is going to be PD, AP.
I would be very careful about the religious part. I don't even know, actually, when I heard that in the conference room, what the definition of that would be, because it could range from, it ranges for a lot of different types of buildings and structures, so I don't think that's definitive. I also think, and also, as you know, Mayor, even a charter school is a public school. So I think anything that is defined as a public school would be able to locate there.
Okay. Anything else that you have for us, Sandy? Okay. And just, you didn't speak, but would you introduce yourself?
Judy Whitlow on the board.
Thank you, Judy. Nice to have you here. Thank you for what you do.
Is there someone operating that facility now?
No.
Okay.
The last people, it was Platinum Care, and they moved out a number of months ago, and it is sitting empty. We've been, as a board, taking care of it, removing the cockroaches, etc. So please approve this.
I can make a comment on that. I was just over there, and for being an empty building, you guys are taking extremely good care. The grounds are immaculate, the building's immaculate, so you're taking very good care of the property.
Sandy, are you making Ken mow the lawn or anything?
No, he hasn't even removed one cockroach yet.
Tell him.
I will, don't worry.
All right. We used to be neighbors with the Hires, so. Okay, council, any other questions? Otherwise, it'd be ready for a motion if you're so inclined.
Thank you.
This isn't a public hearing, so no, actually. The applicants do have an opportunity, correct? It's not a public hearing, though, but they get to respond if the council would like them to about their request. So yeah, there was a public hearing, as I understand it. If there was at the Planning Commission level. So yeah, that was the opportunity. And I do believe we've heard a lot of things, concerns that were talked about earlier, and the council's if you want to talk about some of those concerns, we'll do that in our discussion. Thank you.
I just don't see where any of these uses listed here, other than maybe a child care center, or would distract from the neighborhood and be a nuisance to have as neighbors. If I had an assisted living center by me, or an Alzheimer memory care facility, or physical therapy facility, I go through all the uses, and I can't really find any big issues other than, childcare would be noisy, but we need to leave the religious one in there, because
You can really have a daycare in your residential.
Exactly. Yeah.
We've allowed them elsewhere.
I have one across the street from me, and it doesn't bug me at all.
I know some kids that went there. They're all grown up now. I think we do need to realize too, though, some of the concern of the neighbors was that the building that's there, the old Platinum Care, sits way to the back of the property. There's still a whole lot of undeveloped property. I think the angst from the residents is what could go there that might be disruptive, that they didn't know they were moving in next to. So that's kind of the crux of what their fear, founded or not, is. So I think we got to look at it. Now, I like this pared down list because it really stays consistent with what's already there. But that, I think, to some of the residents, it just felt like that's with the building already being there, that was opening the door to other kinds of commercial that they had no control over, that they didn't think they were moving in next door to with this current zoning.
So I agree with you, Jimmy. And I mean, personally, I think that removing professional office and the medical, biological laboratory and research, those don't really fit the purpose of, that space. And I'm not even sure do we even need religious facility in school to even be on there, because they're allowed to be on there anyway, right?
I just know we wouldn't. I don't know, Sean, how would you?
Typically what we do here is just list those uses that we would allow.
Okay.
And so
why not?
What I would say is, I don't know that you have to put those in there. But you can list all the other uses that
But
you
don't
would allow.
exclude them, you're not.
But don't put any
Yeah.
exclusion language in there, that's right.
So I guess, you know, I can see removing the professional office and the medical research building, but to me, a child care center fits the same bill as a nursing facility. So.
Some might really like that in their neighborhood.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's a care space, and it would actually be a really nice care space, a nice neighbor to have in a neighborhood. It would be a safe spot for children, a safe space for drop off and pick up. I can see that being nice for the neighborhood and nice for the children in the same way that a nursing home is nice in that space. It's a nice neighbor, and it's a safe space for those people that are being cared for.
It would also be PD, so we would get to see elevations, correct? And colors, materials, height, all those things. So there's
If
some
they
protection.
changed anything.
Yep.
So at what point will they have to come back to us if this is approved? And what other, I'm still just a little concerned about what the neighbors are getting into. And remember, there is this, if you look at the map there, it's the upside down Utah, that little corner, there's a home right there.
Right.
An existing home.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to come back to us for, because didn't we say it's
Yeah.
so PD, so.
Yes, they would have to.
But they'd only have to come back if they change something.
This would establish the zone on the property and what uses are allowed. Any changes to the property would have to come back before you.
Right.
Yep. Any new buildings or any changes to existing buildings?
Yeah.
Right.
So if they're going to build something else on the front, they would have to come back to us.
Correct.
Right. Yes.
So at that point, we could mitigate any issues to the neighbor, the one home, and.
That's
At
right.
least on those issues,
Right.
you know. I mean, they'd already be bound to these uses, but at least on the heights, colors, materials, we would we would see that.
So, Mayor, this is kind of nitpicky, but do you care if I'd like to read through the things that I think should be there, and maybe we can, because it's getting a little confusing because there's lots
Okay.
of different lists.
Yep.
So I would say child care center, short-term end-of-life care facility, assisted living facility, nursing home facility, Alzheimer's and memory care facility, long-term assisted living care facility, physical therapy facility, senior center.
You're putting physical therapy in there, but not medical or dental.
Well, yeah, that one probably doesn't make sense. Granted. So, yeah, remove that one because that would go along with medical and office.
Okay.
So then just the senior center down below.
Okay.
So child care center so just cut child care center, then starting with short term down to long term, and then just the senior center down below.
Council, other council members, does that seem agreeable to you?
It seems it matches the intended zone change to keep this assisted living facility able to operate, and an expansion of that if someone chose to use the additional land. So that does feel like something that would fit.
And I didn't say religious facility or school, but those are
We're just gonna,
granted.
Yep, we're just
Yeah.
going to leave that language out.
So go ahead and make a motion.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve this zone change from R110 to PD to Plan Development Administrative Professional with the use list that I just read.
Second.
I have a motion by Danielle and a second by Michelle. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, starting with Greg this time, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Thank you. We hope this works out well for everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Number 10.
Number 10. This is to consider approval of an ordinance amending the Bloomington Vacation Villas plan development to allow the construction of 2 maintenance buildings, approve conceptual site plan elevations and materials, and adjust the boundary of the PD. This is the site. You can see the general plan on the left here calls for HDR, or high density residential, and it has been zoned PDR. You can see a tiny sliver on the northern portion that would need to be rezoned into that and brought into that PD zoning. So everything, you can see my mouse here, everything right of this line here basically has been approved. There's also a building that is in this corner that has been approved. This proposal would eliminate that building. So 24 buildings have been approved. This would reduce it down to 23, which is a total of 46 units. This is what they want to build. They want to build 2 buildings. Actually, let me go back. This is the larger building of the 2. It has a small office, and it also has some storage area. There's a maintenance facility that would be located here, and then a smaller building closer to the road. And this is a look at what they would look like. This is the bigger building. Again, some office space, mostly maintenance though. And the applicant was planning on being here. He could probably explain exactly what would be happening in those buildings. This is the smaller building that's closer to the road. This is a rendering of what those buildings would look like. This is looking kind of over the golf course, looking towards the road. You can see those buildings that are actually currently under construction. And then you have the maintenance facilities, this smaller one and this larger one, and then some area for covered storage. And then again, another perspective from the ground level. They would be EIFS or stucco and block. These are the colors that they are proposing. And that is the application. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the application. If you have any questions. By the way, I should say this would also move those facilities that are currently over here next to the driving range and clean that up and bring them over to this area. So just want to make sure that that's understood as well. If there's any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Dan, they're going to match the other buildings, though,
yes. Right? I mean, they will definitely tie in, yeah.
Council, this looks familiar, right? Mm-hmm. What we did previously. Any questions for Dan?
Well, Dan, some of the neighbors, sent letters, and their concern was air quality. Being next to, they were saying that they can smell like really strong fumes coming from the existing facility, and they're concerned about those fumes being even closer to homes. Okay. Do we know anything about that?
I have not heard that myself.
Fumes would even be coming from? They said from pesticides and from the equipment,
okay.
But I don't know.
I was hoping that is he here?
Applicant's here.
Oh, okay, great. The applicant may be able to.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hear from the
maybe
applicant.
Maybe just to address that. What?
Thank you, Dan. There we go.
Jimmy Blair, Bloomington Country Club. Danielle, I didn't hear the question completely.
I was just asking, there were a few residents that sent us letters, and they were saying that there's very strong chemical smells that they can smell currently coming from the maintenance facilities that are there, and like emissions from the equipment. Has that ever been something people have talked to you about or had a problem with?
In the morning, most of our equipment's diesel, as most other golf courses are. And in the morning we run out, and then in the afternoon we come in. We're in and out one time a day, mostly. I think the fumes that you will be smelling right now currently are probably, they've had a lot of, not a lot, but bulldozers, big loaders out there preparing both sites. And they've brought in a lot of belly dumps that are diesel. And, you can smell some fumes right now, but it's negligible. And once things get built, there won't be anything from the golf course.
Jim, and right now, I think, did you just oversee it as well? Have you guys finished overseeding?
Well, we overseeded about the middle of September, so it's been a month and a half.
Could have got some of that smell from the fertilization and stuff maybe that they...
Our fertilizer, they're pretty good nowadays. You don't really smell the fertilization. Sometimes we use some reclaimed water that a lot of the city does, and sometimes depending on the direction of the wind, you can get a little, whiff of that, but it's really doesn't happen very often.
We went to the reuse center, so we know the smell you're talking about.
Yeah. No,
it doesn't smell like that.
No, it doesn't smell like
No.
that. But I can tell when I'm getting a southwest wind that's very abnormal.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to
I'm
deny
just
any
saying
of that.
that could be part of that, what they've been...
Could be, but
Shouldn't be.
I'm there every day, and we don't have it. We keep very, very few chemicals on site, very little fertilizer. The fertilizer is always bagged, and we don't ever store it there. If we buy, $8, $10, $12,000 worth of fertilizer, which we do 3 or 4 times a year, we put it out, and water it in. So I think we follow very good practices, and I think we've done a pretty good job. I think we've done almost everything we said we would do out there, and we're trending in the right direction, and I think most of the community is pleased with what we've done. I know there's some people with some concerns that live, I think it's called reflections. There's some frustrations anytime that somebody does what one faction thinks is progress and the other faction, just as soon not have it.
Well, I think that the villas you guys have built out there already are really beautiful. And I think that this will be a big improvement on the maintenance shed that you have currently. It'll, the fences and everything you've done around it, it should be an improvement. And
I feel
looks
like
really
everything we've done has really been to a high level. This was actually my first choice. It probably wasn't the partnership's first choice, but it'll look just like the villas, and I think it'll look better than any facility that's a maintenance facility for a golf course down here in southern Utah.
I think that that's probably true.
Yeah, at a high expense too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so.
Well, Jimmy, I don't want us to ever forget, we appreciate what has been done by you and your partners with this property. It could have been in a world of hurt.
Yeah,
and so
right.
we really, I personally, I appreciate what you've done, and you've so far, you've, I believe, kept your word and made things work the way I think it was intended, and we have a green golf course.
Yeah, I feel like we have, and the golf course is much better. I think the community is much better for it. They're really buying the stuff up right now, so I'm really excited about that. I don't know that my partners were. They probably wish 5 years ago they could turn the clock back. But it's my passion, and I'm in the process of buying it because they want out, which I understand. But I'm excited about the future. I think the future's great down here in southern Utah.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Questions? Any other questions for Jimmy Blair? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, any discussion, or are you ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance amending the Bloomington Vacation Villas plan development to allow the construction of 2 maintenance buildings, approve conceptual site plan, elevations and materials, and adjust the boundary of the PD.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, seconded by Brian. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motions, starting with Danielle, say aye.
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 All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Appreciate those involved. We are going to take a, what's that? We are going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back. They don't believe me that it's 10 minutes, but they're probably right.
personally. So I've had a total of 8 tonight.
Sean's died tonight, too. And iPads do. Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Me neither. It's scary, isn't it? All right. We will resume. We're kind of a chatty group tonight, which is good. Let's see, we're back number 11, if I have it right, on our agenda. Dan?
You have it right. Yes, so this is, number 11 is to consider approval of an ordinance for a zone change amendment to the River Trails PDR in order to move the road to the south, add a unit, and make small adjustments to the site on property generally located at 1400 East Riverside Drive and is approximately 4.86 acres in size. So early this year, you saw this and approved the PDR, the zone change on this site. You can see River Road here and then Riverside Drive. Excuse me. Future extension of creation of 1450 East will be up this side of the property, which is where the property will gain its access from. You can see the zoning, general plan is MDR, zoning is PDR. So side by side, these are the two. This is the one that got approved several months ago, and then this is the proposed change. So you can see they were straddling this property line with the road that accesses 1450 East. They were unable to secure that property, and so they had to bring that road back onto their property. So you can see on the drawing on the right hand side of your screen, that is now fully contained on their property. They had to move some of the buildings around a little bit to make it work. They did add a unit, so this building over here is, instead of a threeplex, it's now a fourplex. Anyway, they've got their required amenities and so forth. Nothing about the buildings have changed. This is what was approved prior, and they're not asking for any changes to the buildings themselves. So that is it. The Planning Commission recommended approval. If you have any questions, I could answer those for you.
I love that it's not being accessed from Riverside, and that's still the same. I also love that we'll have the chance to eventually develop that 1450, is it 1450 East, which would tie up to between the Coral Desert buildings, like where my office building is. It's going to really help, I think, our circulation around that area. But council, do you have any questions on this? Obviously, it's just a kind of reformatting things a little bit.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. You said they're not accessing it from?
Not accessing this from Riverside. I mean, they are from 1450, which goes to Riverside,
Gotcha.
but no direct access.
Okay, I got you.
See what I mean? And I think that's really good because we've talked about Riverside recently. It's just getting busier and busier, and we wouldn't want to be trying to deal with a, signalized someday intersection there. We may end up with one at 1450, but not a separate one from this development. So anyway, any comments, questions? This is the one that they've been working on and filling right now. Feller, and I believe, is Dennis Garr the one that will be building? Yes. And so these are very similar. In fact, I think the photos are from, is it Blackhawk, that are up on Curly Hollow, Tonnequint. You remember those in the Tonnequint Terrace area that were just completed here, I don't know, within the last 6 months or 10 months. Townhomes. Seems like they are, I want to say 3-4 bedroom units. And I think they sold or leased all those very quickly up in my neighborhood. So, been very successful. If there are no concerns, be ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve a zone change amendment to the River Trails PDR Plan Development Residential in order to move the road to the south.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Greg, seconded by Danielle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Danielle, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Dan, thank you. Yep. Number 12.
All right. Yes, number 12 is excuse me, to consider approval of an ordinance approving an amendment to the Hidden Valley PD area, transferring density from one area of the master plan to a previously designated school site. So you can see the property outlined in blue on your screen. To the left, you can see the general plan. Excuse me. Calls for medium density. The zoning is a PDR. This was approved initially in 1999. That was the original approval. So it's got some history behind it. The entire plan was approved for just over 1,500 units. The applicant is not proposing to change those units, that unit number at all, but they are proposing to move some of the units from one pod to another. So you can see this pod outlined in or circled in red is where the where the units would be received to, if that makes sense. The property outlined in blue is where some of them would come from. Now there are some of these that were built out that also have not used up their total allotment, and so some of those would also transfer to that 3.1, which was previously a designated for a school. The school has indicated that they are no longer interested in that site. I'm sure the applicant has more details on that, but that is what the school is telling them. And so that the density in 3.1 would be 6 units to the acre. The final density in 4.1 would also be 6 units to the acre. And then, like I said, some of the other units that were not used in some of the finished areas, like in here, those would also be transferred, and so that the final density in 3.1 would be 6 units to the acre. And again, no increase in units. And I think I said 1510. I should clarify that is actually 1699. That was the total number of units for the entire development. So that's the request. The Planning Commission recommended approval. I believe the applicant is here if you have questions for him
I just have a question about, so there's that dotted green line that comes off Hidden Valley Drive. Are we eventually putting a frontage road out there so there will be more access?
I believe it's master planned road. Isn't that right, Adam, as I recall, and John? Yeah.
Because that's the only concern I see in this area is just, as the density builds, that there's that one in and one out. But if that's the plan, that's good.
Is the plan for that to go connect clear down to, John, to where the Kenworth,
exit
to, that is the plan. That's what I thought.
There is a frontage road that'll connect and
Yeah.
that'll continue through and connect to that frontage road.
In fact, Adam and I were just talking to someone on an unrelated issue, and we were talking about that very road. And so, more news at 10 on that one.
Okay.
Dan, a quick question about the density transfers here. Does their master plan or development agreement allow for the density transfers? I mean, they've got previously planned areas, and they didn't develop to that upper limit that would have been approved, but does their plan allow them to then take those unused units and move them to other pods? Is what's being proposed within their master plan?
I don't know that, having gone through the development agreement, it's been a little while. I don't know that it specifically says yes or no to that question. I know that it has been done in the past a couple of times, but I don't know if it specifically calls that out.
Sean, any comments there? It seems like we have allowed it typically, but I've never known whether we've specified it.
I think, though, I don't know that if it's not in there that you're precluded from doing that. I'm just curious if there was a specific provision that allowed those density transfers. This is, I mean, given that this is a rezone, I think the council does have the ability just to add density to a particular area.
Yeah, I'd have to go through the development agreement again, a little more specifically looking for that. But.
Okay. Other questions for Dan? Okay, would the applicant like to address anything on this? Bob, are you representing the applicant?
Yeah, Bob Hermanson with Bush and Gudgel. I don't have anything to add that Dan's not already gone through. We're moving around the uses based from the change from the original plan was to have the school site there. And so they decided not to come to this area. And so they had gone way down the road to the point where they actually had plans and everything else. And then for some reason on their end, they decided not to move forward. And I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I don't remember. It's been a couple of years ago when they switched. And so Ivory went back and just looked at their land plan and said, hey, these are the products that are working. This is what we have going on. So we'll just move forward in that direction. And that was it. And not intending at all to increase those densities, just staying with the overall density plan. And so everything that Dan said was spot on.
Okay. Any questions, council? I'd be ready for a motion if you are.
Make a motion to approve an ordinance approving an amendment to the Hidden Valley PD area, transferring density from one area of the master plan to the previous designated school site. Is that the right one?
Yep.
Second.
Motion was made by Brian, seconded by Michelle. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Greg, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Item 13. I'm keeping you busy today, Dan, huh? I think you've been busy for a while.
I get a break after this one.
Okay.
Okay. So this is item number 13, to consider approval of an ordinance for a zone change amendment for the Desert Color Zone Plan to amend the Big Shots Golf Center driving range on property generally located at the intersection of I-15 freeway and the southern corridor, and is approximately 10.65 acres in size. This is a look at the site. It is right here in this corner that I'm outlining with my mouse. You can see the town center designation in the general plan, this purple area here, and then the zoning is PDC, part of the Desert Color PDC. Excuse me. The top picture here, this image, is the approved site plan that was approved with, or conceptual site plan that was approved with the zone change a few years ago. This is the proposed change. You can see a couple of differences. For the most part, it sits the same way that it did originally. They have changed the elevations to the building, which I'll go over here in just a minute, which freed up some area here. They pushed the parking back a little bit, and this created some space for some open space, future playground area, and I think they made it clear to the Planning Commission, we're not talking like a tot lot or anything, but just a place where people that are frequenting the business can go and can socialize and gather, and future putting green down in here. So there's a little bit more space between the parking and the building and then the driving range. Let's just look at the landscape plan. Again, pretty heavily landscaped between around the driving range, and also in the parking lot and around the building. This is the approved elevations for the building. I won't spend a lot of time, but you can see that you'll see that there is a difference, changes with the proposed elevations here in just a moment. Again, elevation of the front of the building, what was approved. These don't really tell the story as well, so I'll just skip to the rendering. You can see the proposed building here. They're proposing stone and I believe it's some EFIS and some composite metal material as their materials for the building. You can see that they have changed up the building, and the applicant's here, and he could probably tell you more of the exact details on what changed exactly. One thing that should be noted is the height of this netting, or these poles, has increased from 150 to 160. So that is something to be aware of as well. And also the lighting has changed slightly. That's something that we'll go over to make sure that it is in compliance with the photometric regulations of Title 10 of the zoning ordinance. But just to be aware that has made a slight change there as well. So that is the proposal. If you have any other questions for me, I can answer those, or the applicant is here also.
Thanks, Dan. Questions, council, for Dan, first of all? Looks really nice. Yeah, when's it going to be done? Says the golfer in the room. He can answer that.
I'm not much of a golfer, but these are fun.
Yeah, they are fun.
Even if you're not a golfer.
There's some cornhole courts out in the front I can see.
Right?
Is that for me?
Yeah, you see him?
Yeah.
Anybody can play that game.
I noticed we're going to have some of those at, was it the Sun River Park?
That game's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay, let's hear from the applicant then. Thanks, Bob. Oh, you're working you tonight, too.
I got to work sometime, right? Bob with Bush and Gudgel, appreciate your time again. Dan has always doing a great job. Just wanted to point out a couple of things, differences from the original approval till now, just to make sure that what we're changing. Overall, we feel at Desert Color that it's been an improvement across the board, all the items that we're referring to. So just as a side note as well. But to go through this, so the building elevations since the time that we submitted originally till now, that time gap changed the building elevations from their corporate offices, so the whole design changed. This is basically their 2.0 version. And so luckily on there, and in my opinion, they got the new version instead of getting the older version and then changing right then. So this is the new version. It has gone through Desert Color's DRC, reviewed, and they've complied to the additional items that we've requested across the board for the elevations and the coverings on the windows and the heights of the building and the parapet walls covering. If you notice that here on the top of the buildings, we've had them add parapet walls to cover their mechanical items on the top of the roof so they can't be seen. That's a big deal for us at Desert Colors. We don't want any of those exposed to the public. In addition to that, they've also decided to push the building back, that setback from the parking lot like Dan was talking about. And what that has done is it's allowed them to have, and I'm not sure who was here and who wasn't or can remember, but originally this plan had the putting course along the side of the building. It was kind of pushed over to the side in between the other parking lot for the future building. And now what's allowed them to do is it's made them, or allowed them to bring that up as a landscape feature to the front of the building, that front corner of the building. And so it's given it a much better presence. And then in addition to that, you can see that here on the corner on this right side, and as it comes across the left, is that all of this other landscaping in this outside activity area, they've put these other amenities in there, so that space has been held back the entire way across the front of the building. So yeah, there's some, the cornhole games, I think they're gonna have some other grass games as well out there, all just as part of the rest of the facility so that there's just gonna be more of an outdoor experience, which is exactly what we wanted out of Desert Color, which they had a portion of that before, but it's like twice as much now. So we really like that. So the building elevations, the other item that that Dan mentioned as well is the pole heights. The pole heights were 150 feet before. The pole heights now in this design are 160 feet. What we were, as Desert Colors, in Desert Color regards, we're okay with the pole height increase. What we were way more concerned about was the lighting. And if you remember, in the original submittal, they had, and also keep in mind of the location of this, so we're in the corner of that parcel. I'm sorry, I don't know how to switch to the different PDFs, but maybe I can. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, thanks. So this is facing to the north. So to the left of the site, if you're in the building, is I-15. To the north, at the end of the driving range, is Southern Parkway, and that's elevated somewhere around 40 feet in elevation change as it goes up and over the top of the freeway, right? Is that before they had proposed four very large lights that were mounted on the building, and they were shining northward. There isn't any residential units in that direction, nor will there be, because that opens up into, so you're looking at Kenworth on the other side, but they're actually they're below, right? So you can't see them at all, and you won't be able to. They're down below because of the angle that you're looking at. And then also you're looking at Pine Valley. There's nothing in front of you. And so those things ended up mitigating themselves with those larger lights, and then in their photometric plan, it also showed that we weren't shining over the property lines. It was a really big concern of ours in any direction, right? Especially to this direction, which would be to the east on this medium box or potential large box that could be in this area or any of the commercial here. They met all those requirements. It worked. It met all. We all bought off on it. The difference in this plan is that they have lowered the power of the lumens. The lights are significantly smaller. However, what they did to make sure that it was still exposed, so you had full exposure on the driving area, is they've got lighting on the poles. And so they've, in our opinion, reached a better compromise on the lighting, so that those lights were, even though the other bigger ones were shining in the right direction where there wasn't anything exposed, we feel like the less power for potentially even the people driving on Southern Parkway is now significantly reduced, and all of these smaller lights that are on all these poles, which are on the building here, and then they're actually only on these poles on this side, so they're not even facing I-15 at all. They're facing to the east, away from the freeway.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, is going to, in our opinion, dramatically help any potential issue that a photometric plan wouldn't foresee. You know, there's other things, a photometric plan, and you can see that the specs show it ending at the lot lines and making sure that we meet that requirement and meeting the intent. But sometimes you have some overexposure of just have bright lights, and we think that this will be a much better downward firing light system than before, and we were okay with it before. So long story, big deal to Desert Color, and so that's why I'm spending a couple minutes with you on it to go through it. But I'm sorry, did you have a question on the lighting?
Yeah, so the ones that are on the poles, how far up the pole will the light be mounted?
They are all the way on the top, and they have a big shield on them, so that they're firing basically straight down, but they're much less power, and they're not, their shielding goes so that they're firing to the east. They're on the west side, firing to the east across the field, and then the ones on the building are compensating it going this way. So they're firing this way, and these are going this way.
So if I have a home to the east of that,
so if you're to the east, so there won't be anything to the east because of the angle, and maybe if I could show you on Google Earth, I could probably show you the.
Oh, because it's all commercial right there.
It's all commercial in the angle with the with Southern Parkway.
Oh, right, it comes this way.
There, and then you go up the mountain. So that's why we feel like there won't be any future. Oh, this would work perfect.
As long as we don't have any overspray to the west of the freeway.
Right, which is exactly what we were concerned about as well. But they're set up and facing the other direction. They're not exposed to the west at all across the freeway. And so,
Bob, even with those, I mean, 160 feet is really high in the air.
Yep.
So, and this is really close to the freeway.
Yep. So,
even with a shield, we're sure that this isn't going to like impede drivers' vision.
Right.
It's going to make it like daytime. No.
So the photometric planning is showing it downward firing and onto the light lines, which is the normal requirement. Even at that height, they're just more pointed in exposure, if that makes sense. They're just firing right there. They're not firing to the side, and then the shield is long enough to where if you're driving on the freeway, you're not seeing the bulb, right? Like that's ends up being the intent, or being the problem, not the intent. The problem is seeing the bulb itself, and so that's what they've provided on the specs, and we've reviewed it thoroughly, obviously, and gone through it, and we really do feel like it's better than before because it's less power. We were a little bit nervous that people driving on Southern Parkway coming across the freeway, if they were to look down into Desert Color, and because you're going to look right at the back of the building, or like which is where the lights are, whichever where is hitting balls, right? You would see those, and these are significantly better than before.
My only other question is about the landscape. So, I mean, there's a lot of trees in this rendering. How are you actually going to plant that? I mean, is this a water-wise landscape like the rest of the development?
Yeah, so what we've done is we've utilized just the Desert Color requirements that we've had in our development agreement for land coverage, plant types. So rewinding just a little bit is everything in Desert Color, no matter commercial, residential, private residence or anything, goes through our DRC, which is reviewing everything in our development agreement and our zone plan and our design guidelines. Like we're pretty governed down there, like to say the least, for my experience down here. And so this is a little bit misleading where it shows it all green, right? Yeah, right. And so desert landscaping, zero landscaping for sure across the board. And that brings up another really good point, is that if you remember, I just wanted to point this out because it was a big deal last time we talked about it. It was along I-15. We had the larger trees so that it wasn't exposed and it was to the freeway. And so those are still there. Nothing's changed there at all. And so I think that those were the 5 points that I just wanted to be specifically brought up, the difference between this plan and the other plan.
What's their timeline on this?
They're going to get going right away, as soon as they possibly can. Yep, they're ready. Super excited to have them. It's something fun to do.
Brian's going to go nuts if we don't get this thing done.
Yeah,
soon.
let's get it.
Brian was worried about how long the field is, so if he's going to hit it past there or not.
I believe that.
I'm more worried about the height of the nets, because that's where I'm going to hit.
That's why they went the extra 10 feet there was for you.
For me. They knew.
You know what's really fun about these facilities and like this is that it does introduce, I mean, a lot of people go there that don't golf normally, and it kind of introduces a lot of people to golf and how fun or frustrating or four-letter word golf is. Can be fun. It's really good. It could be good for golf.
And you can take your entire family,
yeah,
small kids to play. It's a great place to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you.
I think you've covered it well, Bob, and probably my biggest concern are the ones we've talked about, and I know you've got to have lights. I hope it works out well. It's always interesting to me, whether it's the monster storage there nearby on Pioneer, or even Paparazzi, and every new building that's in an area where there isn't much, it just really stands out from places you don't even think about, like coming in the back way to Bloomington, which I do sometimes. I'm going, what is that building that we approved? Oh, it's the Hampton Inn. What is that? That's Paparazzi. What's that? Monster Storage. And you see it from, a couple miles away, depending on where you are. But I think really you've probably done the best job possible to reduce the lumens, the brightness. That's what we'd really like to not do, is have it be, and the glow, around it. I like to preserve as much of the night sky as we can. The Bloomington area is pretty dark, actually, and pretty nice on the starry night. So anyway.
Bob, do they turn the lights off when the business is closed? Or do they leave them blazing?
Yeah, no, that was actually part of that approval. That's a great point as well. The original approval had a time cut off, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but in my mind it's like 10:30 or something when they operation hours, if I remember correctly, is what it was. But yeah, we had gone through that. And I'm sorry I don't remember exactly what it is, but yes.
As long as they go off at some point.
Yeah.
All right, for sure.
Thanks. Council, any other questions or any
I will make a
discussion?
motion
Okay.
to approve the ordinance for a zone change amendment for the Desert Color Zone Plan to amend the Big Shots Golf Center on property generally located at the intersection of I-15 Freeway and the Southern Corridor.
Second.
Motion was made by Michelle and seconded by Brian. Any discussion? How did you let her beat you to the motion, Brian? All in favor, starting with Danielle this time, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Looking forward to it. Thank you. Number 14.
Okay, this is a request to consider a zone change from open space to R110 on approximately 0.58 acres, located on the south side of Bloomington Drive East at approximately 2800 South. This did come before you as a general plan amendment in August, so it should look familiar. There's that Tonnequin Drive there, and it's filling in this little area here between the existing homes. So those homes are zoned R110, so it'll just match the zoning there. And the applicant and representative are available on staff if you have questions.
Council, do you have any questions? Concerns? If you don't, then I would just entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve an ordinance changing the zone from open space to R110 on approximately 0.58 acres located on the south side of Bloomington Drive East at approximately 2800 South.
I'll second.
Motion made by Greg and seconded by Danielle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Greg, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
This next one is a request to consider a zone change from R18 to R2 on approximately 0.49 acres. This is generally located southwest of the freeway on 900 South at approximately 510 East. So this also had a recent general plan amendment from LDR to MDR, and we'll be filling in this space here. It's the applicant's intention to build a duplex. So the applicant's available via Zoom if you have questions for him or for staff.
Questions, council? You know where this is?
Yeah.
No, townhomes will fit in fine.
Twin homes in this
Twin
case,
homes,
yeah.
yeah.
If there are no concerns, again, I know we have the applicant available, but is there anything the applicant would wish to say? I don't see any concerns on the council's part at this point.
No comment.
Okay. Council, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance changing the zone from R18 to R2 on approximately 0.49 acres.
Second.
A motion was made by Danielle and seconded by Michelle. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Danielle, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. That'll be a good
Thank you.
project. Yep. Item 16, I believe. Yep, Dan's back. Just couldn't stay away.
Yeah, that wasn't much of a break. This is my last one. So this is a zoning regulation amendment. Actually, 3 of them. So item number 16 is to consider approval of an ordinance amending portions of the Title 10 of the St. George City Code to clarify provisions regarding recommendations of the Hillside Review Board, add surety bonds to the list of acceptable types of improvement, warranties for construction, installed and improved public improvements, and add provisions to allow gravel driveways in certain zones. So this is the first one. This has to do with the Hillside Review Board. So these changes included adding language that would really does some clarifying. First, it clarifies that the Hillside Review Board isn't the final, doesn't have the final say, but you do as the city council. So that's one thing it does. It also adds in rockfall area, or it actually leaves the rockfall area in to make sure that that's clear. Changes the expiration date from 2 years to 18 months. And let's see, what else? High category rockfall area. And yeah, that is the gist of it. Is just those clarifications to the Hillside ordinance. Second thing is residential lots, driveways. So we've had some driveways that have gone in the past, and then recently had a request for one that I should back up. I should say some of our agricultural zones do allow for gravel driveways, or driveways that aren't hard surfaced, and so we are adding some standards to gravel driveways with this change, and that is that in the RE20, RE37.5, A0.5, and A1 zones, they may substitute pavement for 6 inches depth of type 2 road base and 3 inches of gravel, the minimum gravel size of 1.5 inch diameter. So you have that requirement. Then you also have a requirement for 5 foot of paving or concrete pavers behind that, so that vehicles don't track out that gravel onto the road. That's the idea behind that. And then gravel to be lined with solid borders such as pavers or concrete. And then just clarifying that it's the property owner's responsibility to take care of any mess that they might make with the gravel. So that is what that is attempting to do. And then finally, improvement, completion, assurance, and warranty. So this is bonding. After my understanding is after the improvements are in, this is for the warranty bond, or the bond that takes place after the improvements have been installed. So we're adding surety bond and removing warranty bonds to the language of 1025. So that's really what this one is doing. Gone through those fairly quickly, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those for you.
I was curious about the minimum separation on the driveways. Has that been standard language before? Because I think in some of the RCC zones, your driveway would be like right on the lot line. So if someone builds next to you and does their driveway, is it basically saying then you'd have to have the same curb cut? Or I was just a little bit confused by that. It wouldn't create a problem.
No.
The way we're saying that, would it?
And you're referring to the gravel?
No.
Or you're referring to?
So does this only change
It just gives an allowance for,
for the gravel, but then the minimum
Yeah.
separation, does then the minimum separation apply to all driveways in the city, or is this just only for this? You know, if A applies, then also B, C, and D apply. Is that how it works? Do you see what I'm saying?
this just basically gives the standards for if you want to do gravel. Maybe I'm misunderstanding your question.
I tried to make it as confusing as possible. Sorry, I'm not, I guess what I'm asking is, okay, so this is just for all residential lots.
It's for those that are in the RE20, 37.5, A.5, and A1 zones.
Okay, so then in that case,
So
if A applies, then also. All
You
right.
have to be in one of those zones in order to be able to do that. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
So
So
in other
this
words-
minimum driveway separation only applies to this zoning. So if you were like in the residential city center, this minimum separation is not going to apply to you.
Yeah, this only applies to those specific zones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good question. Other questions? Greg?
Yeah, the base level, just so I understand, the base level that you're putting down, is that in any way designed to prevent weeds growing through it, and so it's a...
That wasn't necessarily, that's really to just give your foundation for the driveway. Really didn't contemplate weed growth, but.
If you just put gravel without the road base and it rains a lot, you might sink right through your gravel and then track mud out.
True.
So that's to prevent, that's what my understanding is, that's what the road base does, is gives you that base for the gravel.
I see. Okay,
That's
thank
not
you.
bad looking.
I've lived out there in the agricultural and nothing stops the weeds
No.
except for like maybe a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, even if you put,
Nothing.
yeah, weed barrier, doesn't matter, it'll still come.
Yeah.
You just have to spray it.
I've seen some goats tied along the road on Little Valley Drive.
Actually, goats do work.
Goats
That is
will
the one
work.
thing that works.
Yep. Goat.
You ready for motion?
Yes.
Motion to approve the ordinance amending portions of Title 10, Chapters 1, 13A, and 13B, 25D, and Chapter 20, Section 2B of the St. George City Code.
Second.
Shut up. To clarify provisions regarding the recommendations of the Hillside Review Board, add surety bonds to the list of acceptable types of improvement warranties and for constructed, installed, and approved public improvements, and add provisions to allow Devin to build his gravel driveway. To allow gravel driveways in the zones explained by staff.
Second.
Okay, so there was a motion made by Michelle and a seconded by Danielle,
Second.
and the city attorney has a comment. I just was wondering if the second included the shut up. The shut up, yeah.
I want it to be included.
And I'll note that the Devon was in jest as well, just for the record, anyone listening to this. Okay, any other questions or comments on the motion? Any serious comments or questions on
Hey,
the
if
motion?
anybody's still listening to this, I mean, they got to realize
They
that
deserve
we've
an
been
award.
going for 3 hours.
That's
So,
right.
we're punchy at this point.
You know, in the old days, Sean would tell us, they used to go till 11 o'clock at night regularly.
I would quit.
Yeah.
But nothing good happened after that.
No.
Never was.
I was here for a few of those, but anyway, all in favor, starting with, let's see, what is this? This is an ordinance. All in favor, starting with Greg, say aye.
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 I
Motion carries unanimously. Oh, we're to preliminary plats, Wes.
And Wes can go like a auctioneer.
Yeah, but I'm not very technical. That's my problem.
Do you need some paper towels over there for the...
Okay, item, whatever, is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 15-lot residential subdivision. I'm sorry, I can't see the item.
Second.
called Auburn Hills Phase 6. It's 15 lots. It's located at approximately Claystone Drive and Carnelian Parkway. Its density is 10.18 dwelling units per acre. It's part of the Desert Color development. And just so you can locate yourself, it's right here. Here's the Southern Parkway right here. Atkinville Wash is right here. And there's the layout of your subdivision right here. It's just these units right there. This is, all the roads are improved except for this one right here that they'll have to finish.
Any questions, council?
Every time you go out there, it's crazy.
Crazy, isn't it? It's looking great, though.
Yep.
They're doing a good job.
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for Auburn Hills Phase 6.
Second.
Motion made by Michelle, seconded by Brian, with the start of a third by Danielle. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 18, 7B.
Yeah, so 7B is a request to approve 18 is a request to, approve a preliminary plat for a 12-lot residential subdivision, which is 3 fourplexes called Auburn Hills Phase 7B. Site is located approximately Garnett Drive and Carnelian Parkway. Again, this is part of the Desert Color development. The density is 9.55 dwelling units an acre. So again, it's pretty close to the other one. Again, Southern Parkway, Atkinville Wash right here. And it's just these 3 units here, these 3 fourplexes basically.
Questions, council? Ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion we approve the preliminary plat for Auburn Hills Phase 7B.
Motion made by Greg, seconded by Michelle. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next item is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 17-lot residential subdivision called Auburn Hills Phase 17. Site is located approximately Garnett Drive and Claystone Drive. The density is 8.41 dwelling units an acre. Again, this is part of the Desert Color development. Here it is. It's a little more into the interior, a little infill develop portion right there. And this is the layout right there. These units right here, and then these 2 fourplexes.
Questions?
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for Auburn Hills Phase 17.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy with a second by Danielle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next item is a request to approve a preliminary plat for 80 residential units called Auburn Hills Phase 18. The site is located approximately Fire Sky Drive and Carnelian Parkway. The density is 16.12 dwelling units an acre. It's 8 buildings with 10 units per building. Zone is PDR. Again, this is part of the Desert Color development. You can see where it is right here. This came before you just recently as a zone change. It's those units right there. So there'll be 80 units in that area.
Questions on this one, council? Ready for a motion?
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for Auburn Hills Phase 18.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, seconded by Brian. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next item is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 63-lot residential subdivision called Hidden Valley Phase 10. Site is located west of the intersection of Hidden Valley Drive and Athens Drive. The density is 4.78 dwelling units an acre. Zone is PDR as part of the Hidden Valley development. It's part of that zone change that Dan just talked about, where this was the school property. This is the church property, school, and that, where now it's all residential here. And this is the layout of the subdivision. The developer will be required to finish this entire road right here, Hidden Valley Drive, from side to side right through here. And they'll also be finishing or building the easterly half of this roadway right there. They also will be required to vacate that existing sewer easement as it goes into the property, and actually the sewer line is actually located in the future roadway alignment. This is where all their drainage comes. It's an existing wash. I just, for clarification, I asked them what the wash was designed. It is designed to carry the 100-year storm event with a foot of freeboard, and that's where the wash sits right there next to those adjacent lots.
Any questions on this one, council?
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for Hidden Valley Phase 10, a 63-lot residential subdivision located within the Hidden Valley development west of the intersection of Hidden Valley Drive and Athens Drive.
Second.
Motion was made by Brian and seconded by Danielle. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next item is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 28-lot residential subdivision called Red Cliffs Estate. Site is located between 3210 East and 30 East at approximately 2300 South. The density is 0.9 dwelling units and acre zone is A1. General plan shows this is LDR. The applicant is Rosenberg Associates. So it's right here. Here's 3210 right here. George Washington Academy right there. 3430 is right there. And this is your layout, 3210, 3430. You can see right here in their cross sections, we will be doing standard road sections through here with curb gutter sidewalk on both sides. And then they've requested that also along their interior lots. They could request the rural section, but they've chosen to use that large 58-foot road section that has like a fairly large landscape strip and a sidewalk where they will want to meander that sidewalk through that landscape strip that's all located within the right-of-way. The other thing that's different from the one shown in your packet is, so this is the low point in this road, 3210 East and 3430 and 3210. They'll be taking their drainage to here and dumping it into that existing ditch that goes along that area right there. On Majestic Views, there's an easement already, but part of the ditch sits on this property. They're going to dedicate 15 feet to the city for that ditch. The ditch will remain open, but they've agreed to dedicate that 15 feet here. We'll use that with the easement over here to be able to maintain the ditch and leave it open for now. One request was that if in the future the city decides to pipe the ditch, that the city then gravel this area here for access, and so that cleans it up and makes it so that they can kind of keep control of the weeds. That was one of their concerns, is to make sure that, you know, this is taken care of for their future residents that'll live here. Also, this house right here, the access to this house is from this property to the south. Their proposal right now is to leave that existing house, so they'll have to show that they do have an easement to that house, as the lot has a driveway now that's actually on property to the south.
Make the turn. Let's see.
Jimmy?
So apparently all the issues were solved on that easement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I got a phone call and they were a little bit concerned, but looks like it all got taken care of.
Yeah.
And that's the corner of 2450 is just, does that go all the way to 2450 or is there a parcel in between?
No, there's a parcel right here in between, right there.
Okay.
And then there's 2450 right there.
Gotcha.
There's actually, I think, a couple parcels right along here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'll make a motion unless there's other questions.
You're good.
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for Red Cliffs Estates.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Jimmy and seconded by Michelle.
Mayor,
Yes.
I do have a clarification on that. So you stated that that lot would have an easement to the property on the south. Is that a roadway there on the south?
It's a platted, it's not a dedicated, so we'd have to.
So the easement wouldn't work?
There's an easement right now, they say, I don't know that for sure, but that's right, it's not a dedicated road.
Yeah, we're going to have to be specific on that because it's a preliminary plat. So you want to make sure that.
Doesn't that go to a barn or something too? Isn't there, what's back there?
I think it just goes, as far as I can tell, to the driveway. The driveway is right here, or the garage on that south side. And so they have a little, it looks like, I think a circle drive here, but that actual driveway comes in here and then off of there.
And when that roadway goes in, do we want a driveway on that roadway?
Yeah, we'd be okay with the driveway on that roadway, yeah.
So other homes will have driveways on that roadway
They
too?
could potentially, I mean, it would be okay, it'd be acceptable. It's just that, yeah, you're right, I'm not sure what to do because that is how the house gets access right now.
Yeah, right now it is. Off of 34 or whatever.
30.
Right.
34, 30.
We could have them dedicate that as roadway frontage right there. And
I don't know.
I think what we'd want in that motion is that there be that it would be conditional upon working with legal so that we can come up with an acceptable solution, because that will be a roadway someday, we know that. But we need to have something that gives them legal access to that area.
Jimmy, you okay with amending your motion to that effect?
Sure.
And who seconded it, Michelle? You okay with that? Okay, so we have an amended motion to add that language that stipulating that this be worked out with legal to make sure that they have access and for the future, okay, as well as the present. Okay, any other questions or discussion on that item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. I don't think we have any other agenda items other than the last three mentioned, right, Adam? Danielle, I wanted to mention in terms of appointments, I know that, bless her heart, Michelle Graves is really anxious to get the Arts Commission board updated.
Yeah.
But we've got to, in order to do that, we have to also, at their request, they're wanting to change some structural things in terms of the names of, or titles of those people. We weren't, that language wasn't ready. I don't know if you heard this already.
No, I didn't.
That language wasn't ready, still needs to be worked out with Brian in our legal office and Michelle. And on the advice of our city attorney, we really can't appoint these people until we have actual viable positions to appoint them to.
That's okay.
And we've also we're adding some numbers, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
So if you will, I don't know if she knows that yet, Sean, but I don't know if anyone's talked to her. But, yes. Okay. So it is not a plot to ruin her week. Again. But, oh, she does. That's true. I don't know if she wanted it, but she has it now. So anyway, if you'll just so you know, since you're a part of that in multiple ways, we will do that as quickly as we can. And I will contact the individuals involved so at least they'll know it will be moving forward at some point soon.
Okay, sounds good.
I don't have any other appointments at this time, but we will soon, as I keep saying. Any reports from council members? Danielle?
Well, I don't know if you guys have heard, but we have a new mural.
No, we haven't heard, haven't seen it.
Okay, so I just
awesome.
wanted to share that you should go by and check it out.
Has everyone had a chance to see it? It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes,
It's
it is.
noticeable. We accomplished the goal of getting noticed.
I have already had a few
else.
people say to me they didn't even know we had a city art museum.
I know, so many people say that. So I really do think it's going to be a cool thing to draw people in.
I think it's mission accomplished.
Yep, yeah.
I think that was the total goal and fully mission accomplished, right?
Yeah.
Very, very noticeable and done
Yeah.
extremely well. It's great.
Yeah. And, I can imagine, as we've kind of said in text, not everyone will appreciate it in the same way, but we've had some pretty broad applause, I'll just say, so far. So that's cool.
Yeah.
And I love how it was done, and I loved you reporting on some, what would you call it, some educational opportunities that the artists have offered to, was it over at Dixie State?
Yeah.
Which was really cool.
Yeah, they did some neat stuff. And
Yep.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but there was an electrical box out front that was really
Yes.
faded, and it just kept bugging the artists. And they finally said, will you find out if we can just paint that, because it's detracting from our painting? And so I called the mayor. I said, do you think they could paint that? And he said, yeah. And they just decided to do that bison on there, so that was kind of cool.
I told them I'd take the hit for it. I called and let Adam know, and I repented to Laurie Mangum, and she said, oh, it's fine. We should do more of that. So anyway.
It turned out really cute. I like what they did on it. So
Thank you for your role with with that. And it's cool that it happened, especially with the cancellation or delay, I guess, of Dock Utah
Yeah.
and a brand new black wall. I greatly prefer this.
Yeah, when they called and said that was canceled, I'm like, no, you can't wait 5 months. You can't leave us with a
Good
black
work.
wall for 5 months.
Good work. Anything else to report at this
Nope,
point?
thank
Jimmy
you.
Hughes?
We are going to be needing a new board member at the St. George Housing Authority.
Oh, we
I
are?
don't know if you guys knew that Dorothy has resigned from the board.
Just didn't know. She's
Yeah.
been serving a long time.
She has, and so she just decided to spend some more time with her family. So we're in the search for that. I don't know if Mike has not submitted any names yet. He kind of had someone in mind, but Mike Barber.
Okay.
But anyways, we need to do that.
Okay, I'll check with him on that.
Other than that, some of you made it to the Riverwalk ribbon cutting. So that's in full swing. On to the next thing.
Yeah.
The child daycare, or the
Yep.
24-hour daycare. So I don't know.
It was really cool.
It was really cool. It's fun to be involved in that. Something that I don't know that I was on my radar before, but it's been very cool. So other than that, I don't think I have anything else.
Thanks, Jimmy. Michelle?
We are officially on the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument Project registration.
Yes.
And so Brian and I are co-chairs, so you had to have co-chairs. I had to fill out all this paperwork and submit it. And about 30 minutes after I submitted it, they had a website back to me. So it's exclusive. It's the Washington County. That's what it is. The
Okay.
Gold Star Families Memorial Project. And
We'll have them make out a check.
Yeah.
so actually, on the website, you can go there. We've kind of talked about really waiting to launch it in January. After the holidays, people may be more apt to have some money and want to donate. But you can go on the website. You can donate directly there. And because they are a 501c3, we don't have to handle any of the money. They will send you a receipt for taxes. And if somebody wants to write a check instead of donate through the website, all they have to do is put in the memo. It's for St. George, Utah, and they will send them a receipt. And since I got the paperwork in, like they sent us a handbook, 18-page handbook we had to read, and all these guidelines that they're very strict about who can be on the committee and who can't. And I just said, they wanted a timeline, so I just said fall of 2021. If we raise the money before then, we can always change the date. But we're in their queue, and it's up, and so
That is awesome.
It'll be really cool.
That is quick, too, so thank you for your work.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, me either. It'll be really cool when it gets down there. And David's on our committee, too.
Awesome. Thank you,
Yeah.
David.
So-
David knows something about.
Yeah, because he can also help us
Veterans.
we'll probably set up a Facebook page just specifically for this and do some things, But like I said, we'll really wait till January. And I don't think it's going to take us long to raise the money. And we're also waiting on Chief Hooper to recreate a photo for me.
Good.
So I don't have any copyright problems.
Very good. That's good.
It'll be our own photo, but he called me one day and he's like, Michelle, there is scaffolding around the temple because it kind of was from up there and took in everything to Pine Valley. And I'm like, well, you know how to Photoshop. So anyway, he's still working on the photo, but.
That'll be great.
What's your fundraising target?
What is it, about
35,000. Yeah.
That's a lot less than what they had to raise up north. Is that just because we're more cost conscious, or
I think because
that they have to pay?
they have a certain monument company they use. They've got it all down to the everything. We're using the exact same photos that Ogden used, except for our homeland. And then, like, a crane will have to set it, but Brian can get a donation from that because of who he works for. And the Parks Department wants to donate for the landscaping, the extra cement where it'll go, so that'll save us a little bit of money, and so.
Up in North Ogden, they did all that.
Yeah,
so that
that's what I
cost
figured.
Doubled with that.
And Jenny Taylor called me just a couple days ago to see Alex, the guy that's over this, he's a Marine, and they just volunteer all their time to do it. They're not paid to do this. And when I was talking to him, he said, "You need to get a hold of Jenny Taylor." And I laughed and I said, "We have been in touch with Jenny Taylor." And he said, "I wish she was on everybody's committee." But Jenny's so excited it's going in Town Square. She's like, "That is just awesome." She said, "Our place is kind of boring where we have ours. And, it's not like," but she said, "Town Square is like, it's just going to stand out and be amazing there." She can hardly wait. And so, anyway.
That's awesome.
Keep you posted.
Okay. Brian, anything else?
I believe, if it hasn't been changed, we have a Temple Springs cleanup day this Saturday. I'm sure I haven't heard anything from Officer.
Yeah, all right, come on.
I'm just trying to make sure of the time. I believe it is at 9 o'clock.
I have it down for the 7th, Brian. I think it's on the 14th.
This
you mean,
is the 7th.
You mean 14th?
Well, I have it down for 2 days from now.
Well, that's what he
That's
said.
what
I'm
he's
saying.
saying.
You're saying, okay.
Yeah.
It's Saturday.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, if you're available.
So as far as we know, this Saturday, what time?
I believe 9 o'clock. Is that what you had? Yeah.
And Jimmy's birthday's Monday. I only know this because it's my anniversary.
Jimmy.
Uh-oh, that's a big one, isn't it?
How old you going to be, Jimmy? Tell everyone.
35.
Okay. Man, he just always stays the youngest. on the
Always
class.
stays the youngest.
Freaking old, and I'm not happy about it.
I think
Veteran-
he's getting closer to the age he could pick out his own casket now.
Oh, I know what he's old enough to do, to get senior
An
citizen.
AARP
They
card.
sent me a
Yep.
An
thing in the mail.
AARP card.
Oh, I threw that thing away.
Hey, no,
Yeah.
you get a discount at Denny's.
He goes there all the time. Hey, Veterans Day, so we don't forget, Veterans Day, we've got 9 o'clock out at Sun River for any who
Yeah.
can and want to go. And then I believe the parade is at 11.
11.
Do we have a
11.
slot in the parade? Do you know? We
Did
do,
somebody
David?
register us?
Awesome.
Are we doing the fire truck?
Oh,
Will we have candy?
Probably outlawed.
we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out.
Okay.
Let's do popsicles instead.
I'll be there.
I'll go.
Oh, you better get are you going to be there?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
There's nothing else going on.
And I'm going to wear, just if you guys all have one, if any of you bought the firefighter T-shirts for Veterans Day that are camo
What?
Yeah,
with the Army.
I got one. I just might not have gotten the right size.
Well, you have from now until the 11th to.
I didn't
I
get
look
one
good
of
in
those. I want one. Who do I need to talk to? Robert?
Robert, if they have any extra, but
don't
they
know.
sold them quite a while ago.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
while. You had to just kind of see the email and
I
order.
think I missed it.
Yeah,
Oh, I
it-
remember it now.
Yeah.
I remember
I
it.
like them. They're nice shirts.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
All right.
Tony take one in and you probably
All right.
Double X ain't what it used to be.
It's a youth size double X.
Anything else, Brian? This is a tough crowd tonight. Gregory?
Yeah, I've got one for you. So I'm on the board of the St. George Dinosaur Museum. They've had a rough year due to COVID, and they also got flooded.
Oh,
in our
no.
1,000-year
Wow.
flood that we had.
Oh,
They were involved in that. So they got flooded. The city of St. George did a really good job of helping them fix those flooding issues that they've had. So they requested some help from our departments there, and they helped fix those things. And they got hit pretty hard financially this year due to COVID, but it's coming back. They've done a really good job of management, and so they're looking good here at the end of the year. So things are going good over there. I mean,
Awesome.
things are on the up and up. Is what it
Awesome.
is.
Okay. Adam?
Oh, you were awesome.
Don't forget, no shave November.
I'll start on Sunday.
And those of you that did decide you're going to do the golf tournament, or your company is, you should have all received an email from Deanne. I gave her yours because Darren's wouldn't go through for her. So anyway, look for your email. I won't be there. My 6-year-old granddaughter is racing in her first motocross race.
Yeah. Luckily, they have good health care in Vegas.
Scary.
Sean, anything from your department? David? We just need to, everybody, let's just thank David for doing a great job with the media this week and writing everything.
Yay.
Thank you. You did a great job. David always does a great job, but this week was kind of last minute, and he did several interviews yesterday. Thank you, so we didn't have to. And he knows how to do it. He knows them very well, and I only had to do one today, and it was by phone, so thank you. Okay, I'm ready for a motion to adjourn.
One thing.
Oh, too late.
Too late.
Officers. Thank you for all you do, and please tell the rest of your officers thank you.
Yeah.
You're doing a fantastic job.
And your beards are looking really black tonight. Yep. Okay, we had a motion to adjourn by Michelle.
Second.
And we have a second by Brian or Greg or both. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. I hope we did.